Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Muhi Khwaja with the Muslim Philanthropy Podcast at the American Muslim Community Foundation. Today we have our guest, Gigi Salka. She's been nominated for being an outstanding philanthropist. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
So wanted to give our listeners an opportunity to learn more about you. So if you don't mind sharing kind of where you're located and a little bit more about yourself.
So I'm Gigi Salka. We're currently in Michigan, raised and grew up in the Bloomfield Hills area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm married with three beautiful children. We've been empty nesters for the past, 6 years. So just kind of at a point where my husband and I are just, reinventing ourselves and finding new and exciting things.
Wonderful. And having the opportunity of growing up in Michigan and knowing you and Samer and just some of the community, through the community, it's just really an honor to see you be nominated and recognized in this way.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So I would imagine now being empty nesters, you probably have a lot of time to volunteer with projects and do things that you are interested in. So tell us a little bit more about reinventing yourself and some of the projects that you've been associated with.
Well, this is not something that just happened today. It is volunteering, philanthropy, and I really wanted to say, kind of like we talked a little bit about earlier when we had our phone conversation, is that the importance of philanthropy to me and what philanthropy really means. And philanthropy is not really monetary. It's just really a mindset. It's a way of thinking. It's giving back
Mm-hmm.
to your community and to to the people around you, right? So for us, philanthropy just is just a way of life, I guess. It's not measured in financial financial means, although both are important. But I mean, that's what we think of. That's what I think of philanthropy.
Mm-hmm.
And so and even volunteering, like, I don't think it's volunteering. It's just like, it's your duty. It's what you do. It's just part of your daily routine, is what you get up and do. So it all started with like a lot of moms. It started with my kids. Your kids are in school and you volunteer in the classroom and you're a classroom mom and all of those wonderful things. And then 9/11 happened, and like everything else, it put all of us on the forefront of who we are as Muslims, and especially in our children's school. And so our volunteering slash philanthropy took on a different light and more involvement in different things. And just one, it's just a journey. One thing leads to another. You start off in your children's school, you move up to your community level, find the things that are important to you. And for Samer and I, and Islam has always been our driving force, right, for our philanthropy. I mean, that's just kind of how although we believe in philanthropy in all avenues and everywhere, and it's all important, but that's just kind of our, you know, our uh, our guiding light,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
As to
And in terms of your time, your talent, these are things in ways in which you engage in some of these projects as well. So when I worked at the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, ISPU, you were active there. I know that you've also helped with Zaman International and with Islamic Relief. So tell us a little bit about some of these projects and why you're so committed to them.
um, every there's a lot of wonderful organizations and a lot of wonderful institutions that do a lot of great things. But for us, we kind of try to think of our impact, of where our philanthropy and our time. And honestly, you and everybody else, like the value of time these days. No, oh, I'm so busy. But it's really, so that's also a valuable commodity, as to where you can, not that one organization is not worthy, but there's just, there's limited resources, and time is being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we're extremely involved in these three organizations. Basically, they just each serve a different purpose that we feel is so important. First of all, we're very vested in the American Muslim community and the all three organizations are very, I mean, it's IRUSA, right? So very vested in our communities here in the US. And that's what these organizations really speak to. So one being more Zaman being a humanitarian organization, serving women, empowering women, the education of women. And that's something that speaks very dear to us because education and educating a society is so critical on so many levels for a community. IRUSA, they are on the ground everywhere, all over the United States and internationally as well,
Hmm.
but they serve a different purpose, right? I mean, they have their Day of Dignity, they have their, their food distributions, they have their all of those kind of basic needs kind of assistance that they have as well. And then ISPU serves a much grander scale that we really need, which is being at the, being in polling, being in surveys, being on the front lines of really directing the narrative of who we are as Muslims in America.
Hmm.
And that is so important. And I just think, going back to that whole education, I guess maybe even at Zaman, we're really invested in the education piece of Zaman. I mean, I work at Zaman. I'm the booth director at Zaman, which is education arm with ISPU. I feel, yes, although it is, surveys on American Muslims, but it is also like connecting. I think it's so important to connect all the educational minds, the higher level minds at universities, and all of these people doing research and connecting those. So um, we just kind of fell into those, and honestly, our philanthropy is really about the leaders of those organizations, right? I
Right.
mean, just really, what is the leadership? What is the transparency? What is the impact? That people are doing in those organizations. So,
Yeah, and I think being part of that thought leadership of how these organizations can continue to develop their programs and services and be more enriched in the community, and also having the community then tap into the organization as well. There's the idea of everybody has their voice, everybody has their circle of influence, and everybody in has power as well, right? You can share this information with other people, and I think that with Zaman, with Islamic Relief, with ISPU, you and Samar have done a fantastic job of really sharing the organizations with your friends and families as well. But not everybody does that. So like, what do you feel is why do you feel so passionate and dedicated to doing those things as well?
I believe in them. Really, honestly, like I trust what they're doing, and I think that's really what it is.
Hmm.
Because I feel that all three organizations, although they service different aspects of the community, they all have similar visions and similar processes in how they conduct their organizations, and they are all visionaries,
Hmm.
and they are thinking forward, and they're thinking as American Muslims. They are thinking of the next generation and beyond.
Right.
So they are very forward thinking organizations. I think their mindsets are similar, right? And so that is really important to me. And they listen, right? I mean, that's also really important. I mean, you need to listen to your constituents,
Right.
whoever they be, whether it's your clients or your donors or to your whatever. I mean, they may or may
Volunteers.
not be
Yeah.
able to, volunteers, right? So I think it's just that open door policy, that transparency, that visionary thinking. We need to build institutions that are going to be long standing, that are going to be impactful, and that are going to be visionaries for the future, right?
Yeah. And I think you also said, engage. You believe in the leaders, and you
Mm-hmm.
really engage with them. So knowing Sister Najah, knowing Mara, knowing Sharif, all at those organizations. Tell us a little bit about your engagement with their leadership teams and just being able to share that feedback from the community and having them listen.
I think in everything that I do in my life, whether it is our philanthropy or any way we conduct any kind of business transaction, because at the end of the day, philanthropy is also a business transaction,
Right.
right? Um, is relationship building. I think that is core to any organization, philanthropy or not. I mean, relationship building. And then when you have that relationship, when that organization says, well, I have this new exciting project, and what do you think? You trust, like, I have that relationship, like I have that trust factor that it's going to come to fruition. And if it's not, then I trust that they're going to do their best to get there, right? So I think developing relationships within your community, within your leadership, within your base, that is just so important, because once you have a relationship, it's easier to get things done. But if we don't always communicate, and we're not always part of the process, it's harder to understand what these organizations are trying to do, because you haven't developed that relationship. You can't come in and ask people for stuff if you haven't worked them up and gotten there yet,
Right.
right? You don't have
Right.
that personal right? So
And it seems like each of these organizations, they've been engaged with you and your family for over a decade easily, right? So it's getting to this point has been a long process.
actually, you just kind of mentioned something that's kind of exciting too, is Samar and I, and me especially, even in my role right now, we believe in like all three organizations.
Hmm.
We started at them when they were in somebody's garage,
That's awesome.
somebody's space, like
Yeah.
somebody's basement, and it was just an idea of people coming together with a vision that is so important,
Right.
right? So I think that's kind of what drives us too, is that just being part of that growth and seeing that, and having a vision and seeing it actually happen. So with whether it's at ISPU, we know the leaders on a personal level, but they're also local, and it started off when it was like in Iltifat's basement. And
Yeah.
with Haji Najah, same thing. Samar and her met. She was still working as a nurse at the hospital,
Hmm.
and she was working out of her garage,
Right.
and IRUSA now, they're amazing and they're huge and they're great. But back in the day, all they were doing was distributing food,
Hmm.
right? And now they're so impactful in so many other ways. So
Yeah.
really, believing in people, right, and believing in their ideas and their visions
For sure.
from the start.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share about just kind of any nonprofits or advice that you have for nonprofits or for people who want to contribute to nonprofits?
I think that when you contribute, be invested in the organization that you're contributing to,
Hmm.
right? And as nonprofits, be invested in your donors, and be invested in people,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the dollars are come and go. I mean, philanthropy is not about money. And if you look up philanthropy, and before we had this conversation, I asked you, and I'm like,
Yeah.
if you look up philanthropy and you define it, it has such a financial connotation, and that makes me gives me pause, because we don't like to be recognized for that, right? But to be recognized for your contribution to a community, for the impact of what you're doing to a community. And that's what philanthropy really is. I mean,
Yeah.
just what's the hadith, like the smiling in the face of your brother is a sadaqah,
Hmm.
right? So why do we define philanthropy as a monetary value?
Right.
There is value in humans and relationships. And philanthropy is, what do these organizations do? They bring people together,
Right.
right? Whether it's our clients, whether it's our donors, whether we're volunteering together, whatever that we're doing, that are being impactful, that's philanthropy. Yes, we're impacting the less fortunate, or whatever it is that we're impacting. But at least for me, for Zaman, and I say it all the time, it benefits me more than I benefit it.
Wow.
What I get out of it as a person
Yeah.
is even more than I could imagine, time wise or monetary wise or anything else. And the same thing with ISVU and so I think just we need to have a new definition for what philanthropy really means.
Yeah, and I think the Greek definition, if you look at the word, is the love of mankind, right? So I think it's totally
Hmm.
in line with what you're saying, is like, how can we make the world a better place for people, and whether people do that with their time, with their talent, with their treasure, with their testimony, those are all ways in which you can define philanthropy. And I think you're a model for people to kind of see how they can engage with nonprofit organizations, what they can do. So again, congratulations on this nomination.
Thank you so much.
So we're hoping to, make all the announcements and the awards at the event that we're hosting on November 14th. So looking forward to hosting you and your family and friends there. The event's going to be with Hassan Minaj as our special guest speaker. Then there'll be separate panels on the role of zakat and sadaqah in social justice. So again, very timely to what we just talked about.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
also nonprofits creating a better tomorrow. So we're really excited for the event, and can't wait to host you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Of course.